Welcome to English Motivation. If you understand English but feel afraid to speak, if you want confidence, fluency, and motivation, you are in the right place. Here, you will learn English through powerful life stories. Simple English, real emotions, real lessons. Read aloud with us. Grow every day and change your life, one story at a time. The night he couldn't escape his own life. The room was dark, but Uruv's thoughts were louder than the silence around him. He sat on the floor, his back against the wall, knees pulled close to his chest. His phone lay beside him, screen glowing, but he wasn't watching anything anymore. The motivational video had ended 10 minutes ago. The speaker's strong voice had faded, but the questions stayed. Outside, the city moved fast. Cars passed. People talked. Somewhere, someone was celebrating something. Inside this room, Uruv felt invisible. He was 23 years old, yet every day felt already decided. Wake up, go to work, smile when required, stay quiet when insulted, come home tired, sleep, repeat. This was not the life he imagined as a child. As a boy, Uruv believed life would be exciting. He believed he would become someone important, someone confident, someone free. But slowly, reality taught him to lower his expectations. You are not special. Be realistic. Just be thankful you have a job. He heard these words so often that they became his own thoughts. That night, while scrolling on his phone, Uruv saw a short video of a man speaking English confidently on stage. The crowd clapped. The comments were full of praise. Uruv understood English. He could read it. He could write it. But speaking? His chest tightened just thinking about it. He remembered all the times he stayed silent in meetings. All the times he knew the answer but didn't raise his hand. All the times he let others speak for him. Not because they were smarter, but because they were braver. He turned the phone face down and whispered to himself, "When did I become so afraid?" That question stayed in the room, heavy and uncomfortable. Uruv stood up and walked to the mirror. He looked at his face carefully. Tired eyes, quiet expression, no confidence. He asked himself something he had never asked honestly before. If my life stays exactly like this for the next 10 years, will I be happy? The answer came instantly. No. His throat tightened, not because he was emotional, but because he finally told himself the truth. His problem was not English. His problem was not money. His problem was not intelligence. His problem was fear. Fear of making mistakes. Fear of being judged. Fear of looking foolish. That night, Uruv didn't sleep much. In the morning, nothing magical happened. The sun rose like always. The world didn't change. But something inside Uruv felt slightly different. At work, when his manager asked a question in English, Uruv felt the familiar fear rise. His heart beat fast. His hands felt cold. This time, instead of hiding, he tried something new. He spoke. His sentence was not perfect. His grammar was not perfect. His voice shook. The room went silent for a second. Then the manager nodded and said, "Okay." That was it. No laughter. No insult. No disaster. Uruv sat down, heart racing, but something warm spread inside him. Relief. During lunch break, he didn't scroll social media. He opened his notebook and wrote one sentence. "I spoke today, even though I was scared." That sentence felt powerful. That evening, instead of watching random videos, Uruv searched for English stories. Simple ones. Slow ones. Stories he could read aloud without pressure. He read one paragraph aloud, then another. He sounded strange to himself, but he didn't stop. For the first time, learning felt personal. Days passed. Not every day was good. Some days he felt confident. Some days fear returned stronger. Sometimes he wanted to quit and return to silence. One night, while reading aloud, Uruv stopped and laughed softly. He realized something important. Nobody was watching him fail. Nobody was judging him. Only he was. Backhand index pointing right. If this story feels familiar, pause for a moment. You are not alone. And if stories like this help you, stay with us. From that day, Uruv decided to give himself just 10 minutes daily. 10 minutes to read aloud. 10 minutes to make mistakes. 10 minutes to grow. Not to impress anyone, only to respect himself. Weeks later, something unexpected happened. A colleague asked him, "Bro, your English is improving. What are you doing?" Urav smiled. He didn't give a big answer. "I just stopped being silent." That night, he wrote another sentence in his notebook. Confidence is not loud. It grows quietly. But Urav didn't know this was only the beginning. Because when you start changing, life notices. And soon, a moment would come. A moment that would force Urav to choose between returning to comfort or stepping fully into courage. That moment was closer than he thought. When fear fought back harder than ever. Change never arrives quietly. After that first small moment of courage, Urav believed things would slowly become easier. He believed confidence would now grow every day, step by step, like a straight road. But life doesn't work like that. Some mornings, Urav woke up feeling strong. His English sounded better. His mind felt clear. He even practiced speaking in front of the mirror before leaving for work. Other mornings, fear returned like it had never left. One such morning, his manager announced something unexpected. "There will be a presentation next week," he said. "Each of you will speak for 5 minutes." In English, the room buzzed with excitement for some. For Urav, it felt like the air disappeared. 5 minutes. Not one sentence. Not a short reply. 5 minutes of speaking. His heartbeat grew loud. His palms turned cold. That old voice inside him whispered again, "You are not ready. You will embarrass yourself. Why did you even start trying?" That entire day, Urav couldn't focus. His mind replayed imaginary disasters. People laughing, words getting stuck, silence stretching painfully. That night, he sat on his bed, staring at his notebook. For the first time since he started practicing, he felt like quitting. "What's the point?" he muttered. "I was fine being silent." But deep down, he knew that wasn't true. He remembered the warmth he felt the day he spoke in the meeting, the respect in his colleague's voice, the small smile he carried all evening. Silence had never made him peaceful. It had only made him invisible. Still, fear was strong. The next few days were heavy. Every practice session felt harder than before. His tongue felt stiff. His sentences broke. His confidence dropped. One evening, he slammed his notebook shut. "I can't do this," he said out loud. Then something unusual happened. Instead of scrolling his phone, he opened it and searched for stories. Not perfect speakers, not celebrities, just people. People who failed, people who stuttered, people who were scared. He listened to a man saying, "I spoke badly many times, but I spoke." That sentence stayed with Urav. That night, he didn't practice speaking. He practiced starting. He stood up, took a deep breath, and said just one line. "Hello, my name is Urav." It sounded simple. It sounded small, but it was enough. The next day, Urav arrived early at the office. The meeting room was empty. He stood at the front, alone, and practiced. His voice echoed awkwardly. His sentences were broken. Sometimes he forgot words. But something surprising happened. He didn't die. He didn't collapse. The world didn't end. Each mistake lost a little power. Backhand index pointing right. If you are reading this and you feel the same fear, stay with us. Stories like this are made for people exactly like you. The presentation day arrived faster than he expected. When Urav's name was called, his legs felt weak. He stood up slowly and walked to the front. For a moment, he considered apologizing and sitting down. But then he remembered the night. He asked himself an honest question. Will I be happy if I never try? He took a breath. He began. The first minute was painful. His voice shook. His grammar wasn't perfect. He saw someone checking their phone. But then something changed. He stopped watching faces. He focused on the story he was telling. A story he knew. His story. The words didn't flow beautifully, but they flowed truthfully. When he finished, the room was quiet. Then someone clapped. Then another. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was real. Arav returned to his seat, heart racing, but his chest felt light. Later that day, a senior colleague came to him and said, You were brave. Brave. No one had called him that before. That night, Arav wrote in his notebook with shaking hands. Fear didn't disappear, but I moved anyway. Days turned into weeks. Arav continued practicing. Some days were good. Some days were terrible. But one thing had changed forever. He no longer waited to feel confident before acting. He acted first. Confidence followed slowly, quietly, like a shadow learning his shape. Backhand index pointing right. If this story is helping you, subscribe to English Motivation. Read aloud with us, grow with us, and build confidence one story at a time. Urav began helping a junior colleague who struggled with English. He didn't correct harshly. He listened. For the first time, his pain had become useful. One evening, while walking home, Urav realized something powerful. The life he wanted was not waiting for him somewhere in the future. It was forming now. Every time he chose courage over comfort. But the biggest test was still ahead. Because soon, Urav would face a moment where confidence alone would not be enough. He would have to choose between safety and becoming the person he was slowly turning into. And that choice would change everything. The day he stopped waiting for confidence. After the presentation, something changed around Urav. People spoke to him differently. Not with surprise, not with pity, but with normal respect. The kind he had always wanted but never believed he deserved. But inside Urav, the battle was not over. Confidence did not suddenly become permanent. It arrived in moments and disappeared just as quickly. Some days he felt proud of himself. Other days he felt like an imposter, waiting to be exposed. One afternoon, his manager called him into the office. "We're starting a new project," he said. "We need someone to coordinate with the overseas team. Weekly calls." In English, Urav's chest tightened. This was not a 5-minute presentation. This was ongoing. This was real responsibility. The manager looked at him calmly. "I think you can do it." Those words hit Urav harder than criticism ever had. "I'll think about it," Urav replied, his voice controlled, his thoughts racing. That evening, Urav walked home slowly. The city felt louder than usual. Every sound pressed against his thoughts. He had worked so hard to reach this point. And now that opportunity stood in front of him, fear returned with new strength. What if I fail every week? What if they regret choosing me? What if I lose everything I've built? At home, he sat on the floor, notebook open, pen unmoving. He realized something uncomfortable. Part of him still wanted permission. Permission to try. Permission to fail. Permission to be imperfect. But no one was going to give that. He remembered something he once read. Waiting for confidence is another way of staying safe. That sentence stayed with him. The next morning, Urav stood outside the office before work, breathing deeply. The building looked the same, but the decision he had to make felt heavy. When his manager asked for an answer, Urav didn't wait for courage. "I'll do it," he said. The words surprised even him. The first call was terrible. Urav joined early, heart pounding. The voices on the other side were fast, confident, professional. His mouth felt dry. His mind struggled to keep up. When he spoke, he misunderstood a question. There was a pause. "Sorry," he said. "Can you repeat?" He felt embarrassed. But no one laughed. No one got angry. They simply repeated the question. The call ended. Urav leaned back in his chair, exhausted. That night, doubt returned. "I'm not ready," he whispered. But something else followed the doubt. Pride. He had shown up. The next call was slightly better. He still made mistakes, but fewer. He prepared more. He listened carefully. He asked questions. Slowly, people began to trust him. One evening, after a long call, Urav realized he hadn't panicked once. Fear was still there, but it no longer controlled him. Backhand index pointing right. If this journey feels like yours, pause for a moment. Take a breath. You are growing too. Urav started waking up earlier. He read English stories aloud. Not to be perfect, but to be comfortable. He practiced listening without translating in his head. He spoke without rehearsing every word. English was no longer an enemy. It was a tool. One day, a teammate said, "You explained things clearly." That sentence meant more to him than praise for grammar. Clarity came from confidence. Confidence came from action. Weeks later, the overseas team invited Arav to lead a small part of the discussion. He froze for a second. Then he remembered the night he sat in the dark room, feeling invisible. He remembered the first sentence he spoke with shaking hands. He remembered the first clap. He spoke. This time, his voice didn't shake. After the call, Arav stayed seated, staring at the blank screen. He felt something unfamiliar. Belonging. Backhand index pointing right stories like this exist to remind you that progress is possible. If you're learning English and confidence, subscribe to English Motivation and continue this journey with us. But growth always brings a new challenge. Irv started working longer hours. He wanted to prove himself. He didn't want to lose this new identity. Slowly, he stopped resting, stopped enjoying learning, stopped listening to himself. One night, while practicing, his mind went blank. He felt tired, empty. He realized he was pushing too hard. Success was no longer scary. Losing it was. Irv looked at his notebook. The early pages were full of fear. The later pages were full of effort. But the last page was empty. He wrote slowly, "Who am I becoming?" That question stayed open, because in the next part of his journey, Arav would learn something even more important than speaking English confidently. He would learn the danger of forgetting himself while chasing growth. And that lesson would change the direction of his life. The day he stopped waiting for confidence. After the presentation, life did not suddenly become easy for Arav. Yes, people noticed him more. Yes, some colleagues spoke to him with respect. But inside, the same old fears still lived quietly, waiting for the right moment to return. Confidence, Arav learned, was not a straight line. Some days it felt strong. Other days it disappeared completely. One afternoon, his manager called him into the office. "We're starting a new project," the manager said calmly. "We'll be working with an overseas team. Weekly online meetings. English only." Arav's heart dropped. This was not a short presentation. This was not a one-time risk. This was continuous exposure. The manager continued, "I want you to handle communication." For a second, Arav wanted to say no. His mouth almost formed the words. Fear rushed in fast, bringing excuses with it. "I'm not ready. Someone else would be better. What if I fail?" But then Arav remembered something important. Every time his life changed, it started with discomfort. "I'll do it," he said, surprising himself. The first meeting arrived quickly. Arav logged in early. His hands were cold. His heart beat loudly in his ears. The screen filled with unfamiliar faces speaking confidently, fluently, quickly. When it was his turn to speak, his mind went blank. He misunderstood a question and answered something else. There was a pause. "I'm sorry," Arav said, forcing the words out. "Can you repeat?" The pause felt long. His chest tightened. But then the other person repeated the question, patiently. No anger, no judgment, no humiliation. The meeting ended. Arav leaned back in his chair, exhausted, embarrassed, and strangely proud. He showed up. That night, doubt attacked him again. "I sounded foolish. I shouldn't have taken this role." But another voice spoke too, softer, but stronger. "You didn't quit." The next meeting was slightly better. He prepared more. He listened carefully. He wrote key points. He still made mistakes, but fewer. Confidence didn't arrive suddenly. It arrived slowly, like a sunrise you don't notice until the light is already there. Weeks passed. Arav began to understand something powerful. He didn't need perfect English. He needed clear intention. People cared more about understanding than grammar. One evening, a teammate messaged him privately. "Thanks for explaining things clearly today." Arav read the message twice. Clearly, not perfectly. That word stayed with him. Backhand index pointing right if you're reading this and learning English. Remember, clarity matters more than perfection. Arav practiced daily, but differently now. He didn't chase flawless sentences. He chased connection. He spoke even when unsure. He asked questions without shame. He listened without fear. Slowly, English stopped feeling like a test. It became a tool. One day, the overseas team asked Arav to lead part of the discussion. For a moment, fear returned. But this time, it didn't stop him. He spoke calmly, simply, honestly. After the call ended, Arav sat quietly, staring at the screen. He smiled, not because he was confident, but because he was brave again. Backhand index pointing right stories like this are for people who feel stuck but keep trying. If this helps you, subscribe to English Motivation and grow with us. But growth brought a new problem. Irv started working longer hours. He wanted to prove himself. He didn't want to lose this new respect. He stopped resting. He stopped enjoying learning. He pushed himself constantly. One night, while practicing, his mind went blank. He felt tired, not physically, but emotionally. He realized something important. He was afraid again, not of failure, but of losing success. That fear was quieter, but more dangerous. He opened his notebook. The early pages were full of fear. The middle pages were full of effort and courage. The last page was empty. He wrote one sentence. Am I growing or just running? Irv didn't know the answer yet, but he knew something else. Confidence came after action, but wisdom came after reflection. And soon, life would force him to learn that lesson the hard way. Success that almost cost him everything. At first, Irv felt proud of himself. He had changed. There was no doubt about that. The quiet, invisible version of him was gone. In its place stood someone who spoke, who tried, who took responsibility. But success brought something new into his life. Pressure. It arrived slowly, quietly, almost politely. More work, more expectations, more responsibility. Irv accepted everything without question. He believed this was the price of growth. Every morning, he woke up early. Every night, he slept late. He practiced English, prepared meetings, answered messages, helped others, and tried to stay strong. People admired his dedication. Inside, Arav was getting tired. At first, it was small things. He forgot simple words. His patience became short. Reading aloud, once enjoyable, now felt like a task. He ignored the signs. Just a little more effort, he told himself. One evening, during an important call, Arav's mind suddenly went blank. Not for a second, but for long enough to scare him. He froze. Someone repeated his name. Sorry, he said quickly, forcing a smile. Just a moment. His heart raced. His thoughts tangled. The call continued, but something inside him cracked. That night, Arav sat alone in his room, lights off, laptop closed. For the first time in months, he didn't open his notebook. He didn't feel motivated. He felt empty. He whispered to himself, I'm tired. The next day, he pushed again, and the next, until one morning, his body refused. He woke up feeling heavy. His head hurt. His chest felt tight. He stared at the ceiling, unable to move. Fear returned, but different this time. What if I lose everything I built? What if I can't continue? Arav realized something painful. He had learned how to speak. He had learned how to face fear, but he had not learned how to rest. At work, he made small mistakes. Nothing serious, but enough to shake him. His confidence, once growing, now felt fragile. A colleague noticed and asked gently, Are you okay? Arav smiled and said, Yes. But it was a lie. That evening, he opened his notebook and read the early pages. The fear, the courage, the growth. Then he reached the last sentence he had written. Am I growing or just running? He finally understood the answer. He was running. Running from silence. Running from failure. Running from rest. Success had become another fear. Backhand index pointing right. If you are reading this and feeling tired of always pushing, pause. You are not weak. You are human. The next day, Arav did something unexpected. He said no. When more work came, he said, I need time. The words felt dangerous, but also honest. That evening, he didn't practice English. He took a walk instead, slowly, without music, without pressure. For the first time in a long time, he listened to himself. He remembered why he started. Not to be perfect, not to impress, but to express. Over the next few weeks, Arav changed his approach. He practiced with calm, not urgency. He rested without guilt. He worked with focus, not fear. Something surprising happened. His English improved again. His confidence returned, softer, steadier. One evening, a junior colleague came to him and said, "You always seem calm now." "How?" Urav smiled. "I stopped fighting myself." Backhand index pointing right stories like this exist to remind you that growth is not only about pushing. If this helps you, subscribe to English Motivation and continue learning through real stories. But life was not done testing him. A bigger opportunity arrived, one that promised more money, more status, more recognition. It also demanded more time, more stress, less balance. Irv stood at a crossroads. This time, the choice was not about fear of speaking. It was about fear of losing peace. He spent an entire night thinking. By morning, he knew something important. Success without meaning is empty. Growth without balance is dangerous. He made his decision, and that decision would define the final chapter of his journey. When he finally understood why his struggle mattered. That morning, Arav woke up without an alarm. Sunlight entered his room softly, touching the same walls that once felt like a cage. He lay still for a few minutes, listening to the quiet. For the first time in years, he did not feel rushed. The big opportunity still waited for his answer. A higher position, more money, more recognition, the kind of success many people dream about. But Arav's heart felt calm and cautious. He made tea and sat near the window, notebook open in front of him. He did not write immediately. He just looked at the pages filled with his past. Fear, courage, growth, exhaustion. His journey was written there, line by line. One sentence caught his attention, something he had written long ago. "I just want to stop being afraid of my own voice." Irv smiled softly. He had achieved that. But now he realized something deeper. Confidence was never the final goal. It was only the beginning. Later that day, Irv joined a small online session he had started quietly weeks ago. He read simple English stories aloud. Slowly, clearly, for people who were afraid, just like he once was. There were only a few listeners. Different ages, different places, same fear. After the session, a message appeared in the chat. "Sir, I understand English, but I never speak. Your story gives me courage." Irv stared at the message for a long time. His chest felt warm. That night, he didn't think about promotions or pressure. He thought about impact. He realized something powerful. His struggle was not a weakness. It was a bridge between silence and voice, between fear and courage, between learning and living. Backhand index pointing right. If you are reading this and you feel invisible because of language or fear, remember, your voice matters. The next day, Arav gave his answer at work. "I'm grateful," he said calmly, "but I choose balance." People were surprised. Some didn't understand. Some warned him. Arav didn't argue. He had stopped living to prove something. He chose work that allowed growth and space to breathe. Days passed. Arav continued reading, teaching, learning, and sharing stories. Some days were slow. Some days were powerful. He did not chase numbers or praise. He focused on honesty. One evening, while practicing aloud, Arav paused and laughed quietly. He remembered how afraid he once was of his own voice. Now, silence no longer controlled him. One night, he wrote the final sentence in his notebook. Confidence came after action. Purpose came after understanding. That sentence felt complete. Arav knew his journey would never be perfect. Fear would return sometimes. Doubt would appear again. But now he trusted himself. He had learned the most important lesson of all. You don't wait for confidence to start. You don't wait for perfection to speak. You don't wait for approval to grow. You start. And slowly, life meets you halfway. Backhand index pointing right. If this story feels like your story, you are exactly where you need to be. Arav closed his notebook and looked at the city lights outside. The same city, a different heart. His life was not extraordinary, but it was honest. And that was enough. Glowing star final life lesson. Confidence does not come before action. It comes after you try. And purpose comes when you use your growth to help others grow. Here, we learn English through real stories and real life lessons. Read aloud, build confidence, and grow every day. If this story inspired you, subscribe and continue this journey with us. One story at a time.